This is a list of A League men honors achieved since the inaugural season of the league. The following details honors won by A League men clubs and those awarded to players, managers and referees of the competition. Club honors. See also, List of Australian soccer champions. Premiers. The club that finished first on the A League men table is crowned Premiers. Season Premiers runners-up, 2005-06 Adelaide United Sydney FC. 2006-07 Melbourne Victory Adelaide United. 2007-08 Central Coast Mariners Newcastle Jets. 2008-09 Melbourne Victory to Adelaide United. 2009-10 Sydney FC Melbourne Victory. 2010-11 Brisbane Roar Central Coast Mariners. 2011-12 Central Coast Mariners to Brisbane Roar. 2012-13 Western Sydney Wanderers Central Coast Mariners. 2013-14 Brisbane Roar to Western Sydney Wanderers. 2014-15 Melbourne Victory 3 Sydney FC. 2015-16 Adelaide United to Western Sydney Wanderers. 2016-17 Sydney FC to Melbourne Victory. 2017-18 Sydney FC 3 Newcastle Jets. 2018-19 Perth Glory Sydney FC. 2019-20 Sydney FC for Melbourne City. 2020-21 Melbourne City Sydney FC. 2021-22 Melbourne City to Melbourne Victory. 2022-23 Melbourne City 3 Central Coast Mariners. 2023-24 Central Coast Mariners 3 Wellington Phoenix. 2024-25 Auckland FC Melbourne City. Champions. The club that wins the A League Men Grand Final in the final series is crowned champions. Grand Final champions runners-up, 2006 Sydney FC Central Coast Mariners. 2007 Melbourne Victory Adelaide United. 2008 Newcastle Jets Central Coast Mariners. 2009 Melbourne Victory to Adelaide United. 2010 Sydney FC to Melbourne Victory. 2011 Brisbane Roar Central Coast Mariners. 2012 Brisbane Roar to Perth Glory. 2013 Central Coast Mariners Western Sydney Wanderers. 2014 Brisbane Roar 3 Western Sydney Wanderers. 2015 Melbourne Victory 3 Sydney FC. 2016 Adelaide United Western Sydney Wanderers. 2017 Sydney FC 3 Melbourne Victory. 2018 Melbourne Victory for Newcastle Jets. 2019 Sydney FC for Perth Glory. 2020 Sydney FC 5 Melbourne City. 2021 Melbourne City Sydney FC. 2022 Western United Melbourne City. 2023 Central Coast Mariners to Melbourne City. 2024 Central Coast Mariners 3 Melbourne Victory. 2025 Melbourne City to Melbourne Victory. Summary. Club Regular Season Finals Series. Premiers Runners-Up Champions Runners-Up, Sydney FC 4-4-5-2. Melbourne Victory 3-3-4-4. Central Coast Mariners 3-3-3-3. Melbourne City 3-2-3. Brisbane Roar 1-3. Adelaide United 2-1-2. Western Sydney Wanderers 1-3. Newcastle Jets 1-1. Perth Glory 1-2. Auckland FC 1. Western United 1. Wellington Phoenix 1. MacArthur FC. Gold Coast United. North Queensland Fury. New Zealand Knights. Bold denotes current A League clubs. Fair Play Award. The Fair Play Award goes to the team with the fewest points on the Fair Play ladder at the conclusion of the regular season. 1-2. 1 point yellow card, 2 points second caution red card. 3 points direct red card. Year Club, 2005-06 Melbourne Victory. 2006-07 Perth Glory. 2007-08 Newcastle Jets. 2008-09 Brisbane Roar. 2009-10 Sydney FC. 2010-11 Brisbane Roar. 2011-12 Brisbane Roar. 2012-13 Brisbane Roar. 2013-14 Brisbane Roar. 2014-15 Wellington Phoenix. 2015-16 Brisbane Roar. 2016-17 Central Coast Mariners. 2017-18 Sydney FC. 2018-19 Sydney FC. 2019-20 Sydney FC. 2020-21 Brisbane Roar. 2021-22 not announced. 2022-23 Brisbane Roar. 2023-24 Newcastle Jets. 2024-25 Adelaide United. Individual honors. Johnny Warren Medal. The Johnny Warren Medal, named after the late former soccer and media advocate Johnny Warren, is presented to the player who is deemed to be the best player overall at the end of the season as judged by his fellow players. Each player in the league men votes 3 times over the season. After Round 9, Round 18 and Round 27, players are not allowed to vote for players from their own team. The format was changed for the 2015-16 season, with a panel featuring former players, media, referees and technical staff who voted on each regular season match. Your player club: 2005-06 Australia Bobby Despotovski Perth Glory, 2006-07 Australia Nick Carl Newcastle Jets, 2007-08 Australia Joel Griffiths Newcastle Jets, 2008-09 New Zealand Shane Smeltz Wellington Phoenix, 2009-10 Costa Rica Carlos Hernandez Melbourne Victory, 2010-11 Argentina Marcos Flores Adelaide United, 2011-12 Germany Thomas Broich Brisbane Roar, 2012-13 New Zealand Marco Rojas Melbourne Victory, 2013-14 Germany Thomas Broich Brisbane Roar, 2014-15 Australia Nathan Burns Wellington Phoenix, 2015-16 Spain Diego Castro Perth Glory, 2016-17 Serbia Milik Ninkovic Sydney FC, 2017-18 Poland Adrian Mrzejewski Sydney FC, 2018-19 Fiji Roy Krishna Wellington Phoenix, 2019-20 Italy Alessandro Diamanti Western United, 2020-21 Serbia Milik Ninkovic, Mexico Ulysses Davila Sydney FC, Wellington Phoenix, 2021-22 Australia Jake Brimmer Melbourne Victory, 2022-23 Australia Craig Goodwin Adelaide United, 2003 for Australia Josh Nisbet Central Coast Mariners, 2024-25 Australia Nicholas Milanovic Western Sydney Wanderers. Joe Marston Medal. The Joe Marston Medal is given to the best player in an A-League Men Grand Final. It is named after Joe Marston, an Australian national player in the 1950s. Your player club: 2006 Trinidad and Tobago Dwight York for Sydney FC, 2007 Australia Archie Thompson 5 Melbourne Victory, 2008 Australia Andrew Durant 6 Newcastle Jets, 2009 Australia Tom Pondeliak 7 Melbourne Victory, 2010 Australia Simon Colosimo 8 Sydney FC, 2011 Australia Matthew Ryan 9 Central Coast Mariners, 2012 Australia Jacob Burns 10 Perth Glory, 2013 Australia Daniel McBreen 11 Central Coast Mariners, 2014 Germany Thomas Broich 12, Italy Iacopo La Rocca 13 Brisbane Roar, Western Sydney Wanderers, 2015 Australia Mark Milligan 14 Melbourne Victory, 2016 Spain Isaias 15 Adelaide United, 2017 North Macedonia Daniel Georgievski 16 Melbourne Victory, 2018 Australia Lawrence Thomas 17 Melbourne Victory, 2019 Serbia Milik Ninkovic 18 Sydney FC, 2020 Australia Ryan Grant Sydney FC, 2021 Australia Nathaniel Atkinson Melbourne City, 2022 Serbia Alexander Prejovic 19 Western United, 2023 Australia Jason Cummings 20 Central Coast Mariners, 2024 England Ryan Edmondson 21 Central Coast Mariners. Golden Boot. Further information: A-League Men Golden Boot. The Golden Boot is presented to the player who scores the most goals during the season. Only matches in the regular season are counted. Your player is club goals: 2005-06 Australia Alex Brosk, Australia Bobby Despotovski, Scotland Stuart Petrie, Australia Archie Thompson Brisbane Roar, Perth Glory, Central Coast Mariners, Melbourne Victory 8, 2006-07 Australia Daniel Allsop Melbourne Victory 11, 2007-08 Australia Joel Griffiths Newcastle Jets 12, 2008-09 New Zealand Shane Smeltz Wellington Phoenix 12, 2009-10 New Zealand Shane Smeltz Gold Coast United 19, 2011-12 Albania Basart Berisha Brisbane Roar 19. 2012-13 Australia Daniel McBreen Central Coast Mariners 17. 2013-14 Australia Adam Taggart Newcastle Jets 16. 2014-15 Austria Mark Janko Sydney FC 16. 2015-16 Uruguay Bruno Fornaroli Melbourne City 23. 2016-17 Kosovo Basart Berisha. Australia Jamie McLaren Melbourne Victory, Brisbane Roar 19. 2017-18 Brazil Bobu Sydney FC 27. 2018-19 Fiji Roar Krishna Wellington Phoenix 18. 2019-20 Australia Jamie McLaren Melbourne City 22. 2020-21 Australia Jamie McLaren Melbourne City 25. 2021-22 Australia Jamie McLaren Melbourne City 15. 2022-23 Australia Jamie McLaren Melbourne City 24. 2023-20 for Australia Adam Taggart Perth Glory 20. 2024-25 Australia Archie Goodwin. Australia Adrian Sajicic Adelaide United, Sydney FC 13. Coach of the Year. Main article, A League Men Coach of the Year. Year Name Club. 2005-06 Scotland Laurie McKenna Central Coast Mariners. 2006-07 Scotland Ernie Merrick Melbourne Victory. 2007-08 Australia Gary Van Egmond Newcastle Jets. 2008-09 Australia Aurelio Vidmer Adelaide United. 2009-10 Scotland Ernie Merrick Melbourne Victory. 2010-11 Australia Ange Postecoglou Brisbane Roar. 2011-12 Australia Graham Arnold Central Coast Mariners. 2012-13 Australia Tony Popovic Western Sydney Wanderers. 2013-14 England Mike Mulvey Brisbane Roar. 2014-15 Australia Kevin Muscat Melbourne Victory. 2015-16 Spain Guillermo Amor Adelaide United. 2016-17 Australia Graham Arnold Sydney FC. 2017-18 Australia Graham Arnold Sydney FC. 2018-19 Australia Tony Popovic Perth Glory. 2019-20 France Eric Momberts Melbourne City. 2020-21 Australia Patrick Kisnorbo Melbourne City. 2021-22 Australia Tony Popovic Melbourne Victory. 2022-23 Australia Carl Vert Adelaide United. 2023-24 England Mark Jackson Central Coast Mariners. 2024-25 Australia Steve Corica Auckland FC. Young Footballer of the Year. Further information, A League Men Young Footballer of the Year. The Young Footballer of the Year award is awarded to a youth under-23 player judged by a panel of experts to be the best young performer throughout the season. Year Player Club, 2005-06 Australia Nick Ward Perth Glory. 2006-07 Australia Adrian Liger Melbourne Victory. 2007-08 Australia Bruce Giant Adelaide United. 2008-09 Australia Scott Jamieson Adelaide United. 2009-10 Australia Tommy or Brisbane Roar. 2010-11 Australia Matthew Ryan Central Coast Mariners. 2011-12 Australia Matthew Ryan Central Coast Mariners. 2012-13 New Zealand Marco Rojas Melbourne Victory. 2013-14 Australia Adam Taggart Newcastle Jets. 2014-15 Australia James Jago Adelaide United. 2015-16 Australia Jamie McLaren Brisbane Roar. 2016-17 Australia Jamie McLaren Brisbane Roar. 2017-18 Australia Daniel Arzani Melbourne City. 2018-19 Australia Chris Economidis Perth Glory. 2019-20 Australia Riley McGree Adelaide United. 2020-21 Australia Joel King Sydney FC. 2021-22 Australia Angus Thurgate Newcastle Jets. 2022-23 Australia Jordan Boss Melbourne City. 2023-20 for Australia Nesteri Irankunda. New Zealand Alex Paulson Adelaide United. Wellington Phoenix. 2024-25 Australia Archie Goodwin Adelaide United. Goalkeeper of the Year. Main article, a League Man Goalkeeper of the Year, Year Player Club. 2005-06 Australia Clint Bolton Sydney FC. 2006-07 Australia Michael Theoklitos Melbourne Victory. 2007-08 Australia Michael Theoklitos Melbourne Victory. 2008-09 Australia Eugene Gailkovic Adelaide United. 2009-10 Australia Eugene Gailkovic Adelaide United. 2010-11 Australia Michael Theoklitos Brisbane Roar. 2011-12 Australia Matthew Ryan Central Coast Mariners. 2012-13 Australia Andy Kovic Western Sydney Wanderers. 2013-14 Australia Eugene Gailkovic Adelaide United. 2014-15 Australia Eugene Gailkovic Adelaide United. 2015-16 Denmark Thomas Skrenson Melbourne City. 2016-17 Australia Danny Vukovic Sydney FC. 2017-18 England Jamie Young Brisbane Roar. 2018-19 Poland Philip Curto Wellington Phoenix. 2019-20 Australia Andrew Redmayne Sydney FC. 2020-21 Australia Mark Birgitty. Australia Andrew Redmayne Central Coast Mariners, Sydney FC. 2021-22 Australia Mark Birgitty Central Coast Mariners. 2022-23 Australia Lawrence Thomas Western Sydney Wanderers. 2023-24 New Zealand Alex Paulson Wellington Phoenix. 2024-25 New Zealand Alex Paulson Auckland FC. Goal of the Year, Year Player, S Club. 2009-10 Costa Rica Carlos Hernandez Melbourne Victory. 2010-11 Australia Eric Partalu Brisbane Roar. 2011-12 Costa Rica Carlos Hernandez Melbourne Victory. 2012-13 Argentina Marcos Flores Melbourne Victory. 2013-14 Netherlands Orlando Engelar Melbourne City. 2014-15 Australia Tarek Elrich Adelaide United. 2015-16 Republic of Ireland Roy O'Donovan Central Coast Mariners. 2016-17 Australia Tim Cahill Melbourne City. 2017-18 Australia Andrew Nabout Newcastle Jets. 2018-19 France Eric Bouthiac Brisbane Roar. 2019-20 Australia Nikolai Topper Stanley Newcastle Jets. 2020-21 Republic of Ireland Andy Q Perth Glory. 2021-22 Australia Ben Garuccio Western United. 2022-23 Australia Giordano Colley Perth Glory. 2003 for Australia Bruno Fornaroli Melbourne Victory. 2024-25 Australia Jordan Lawton Western United. Referee of the Year, Year Referee, 2005-06 Australia Mark Shield. 2006-07 Australia Mark Shield. 2007-08 Australia Mark Shield. 2008-09 Australia Matthew Breeze. 2009-10 Australia Streber Delovsky. 2010-11 Australia Matthew Breeze. 2011-12 Australia George Gillette. 2012-13 Australia Peter Green. 2013-14 Australia Peter Green. 2014-15 Australia George Gillette. 2015-16 Australia George Gillette. 2016-17 Australia George Gillette. 2017-18 Australia George Gillette. 2018-19 Australia Sean Evans. 2019-20 Australia Chris Beath. 2020-21 Australia Chris Beath. 2021-22 Australia Alex King. 2022-23 Australia Chris Beath. 2023-20 for Australia Alex King. 2024-25 Australia Adam Kersey.